Whenever you work for screen or digital design, you would work with RGB. If you work for print, you will work with CMYK. That's the main difference. But you have to also be aware of the technical difference between them to make sure you know what you're doing. RGB images are the images that you take with cameras, so photographs are always in RGB color mode. Even this image here, if I go to the channels, I can see it's in RGB. I can also tell that by looking at the document tab. It says that it's in an RGB color mode. Now, this is just a simulation here, but I can show the main difference between the two modes is that RGB is usually more vivid. The colors are stronger. While if I print this image out, most likely the printed version will be a little bit faded. So the colors in CMYK tend to fade slightly. The difference between what you see on your screen and what is getting printed is because each of these color modes are completely different how they recreate colors. While RGB uses light, CMYK uses ink. At the bottom here you can see when light is combined, the red, green and blue lights, it will actually turn white. While with ink, it works completely the opposite way. When you mix the cyan, magenta and yellow colors together, you end up having black. Here in Photoshop, I can also show you this by clicking on the foreground color swatch, and there we can see the color values. So for example, if I select white, that in CMYK terms will be completely 0. So there's no ink needed for white because the paper is already white. But in RGB, that's the full amount. You can see 255 for all R, G and B values. If I go all the way to the bottom to black, you will see RGB doesn't need anything for that. So think of a dark room. If there's no light, that's completely dark, so black. There we don't need any intensity for any of these torches, so there's no light. It's completely 0. While black has to be created with a very high percentage of all the inks, cyan, magenta, yellow, and even black. K stands for black or the key color in print. And just as an example, a full intensity red would have the red value on maximum, the green and blue on 0, if we are talking about RGB color mode, while the CMYK colors will use no cyan, no black, but a high amount of magenta and yellow. Whenever you create a new document, either in Photoshop, Illustrator or in InDesign, you always have the option to choose whether you want to work in RGB or CMYK. So once again, remember, you choose RGB if you are working for screen design or digital design, and you use CMYK if you work for print. But you can actually see the difference between the two color modes on your screen if you use Proof View in Photoshop. So currently that's an RGB image and we see it as normal RGB on my screen. But if I go to the View option and choose Proof Colors, that will switch to a simulated version of the CMYK color values. So here on the top you can see it's still in RGB, but I'm proofing it for CMYK. And the way you can change that is by going to Proof Setup under the View menu and choose what you want to proof. These are called ICC color profiles, and actually you can get color profiles for every printer. You can download these and install them, and then you can preview on your screen how an image will look printed out on a specific printer. So once again, if I turn this on and off, that's RGB, and that's the proof view of CMYK. So RGB, CMYK. It shows exactly what I was explaining in the previous example. So now that you understand the difference, I would like to point out one thing, that you should have a synchronized color setting for all three applications, which you can find within Adobe Bridge. Now, this is an application which we are going to talk about in much more detail later on. But for now, I just would like to go to Bridge by going to File, Browse in Bridge. And then here, I go to the Edit menu and choose Color Settings. If you set up a setting here, it will be synchronized throughout all your Creative Cloud applications. If you are based in Europe, I would recommend the Europe General Purpose 3 option. But if you turn on Show Expanded List, you will be able to find the other options as well, like Japan and of course North America General Purpose or North America Pre-Press and so on and so forth. Apart from all this, there's one additional thing to consider, and that is to calibrate your screen. Because it is one thing to set up everything the way I explained, but you will still probably run into issues where colors don't turn out the way you expected. For color calibration, there are many devices, and it's not a big investment, but it will definitely make your work much more professional.